The video is only a few minutes long. 3 siblings sit side by side, facing a camera, their expressions controlled, but barely. Savannah Guthrie looks directly into the lens. Not as a television anchor. Not as a public figure. But as a daughter. Her voice is steady, yet fragile. We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay. It is not a performance. It is not scripted. It is a family speaking to someone they believe is holding their mother. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a house that turned into a crime scene, and a family that woke up to a nightmare. Somewhere, someone knows exactly what happened to her. And the most terrifying part? So far, they're not talking. Before she became a headline. Before she became Savannah Guthrie's mother. Before her name was attached to words like abduction, ransom, and FBI. Nancy Guthrie was simply mom. To her children, she was warm, witty, deeply loving, the kind of woman whose presence filled a room quietly, without demanding attention. She was a grandmother. A churchgoer. A familiar face in her community. Those who knew her described her as kind, independent, and resilient. Despite her age and health challenges, Nancy was still living life on her own terms. She lived alone in her home near Tucson, Arizona, a place she felt safe. A place she had no reason to fear. Nothing about her life suggested danger. Nothing about her routine suggested a threat. Nothing about her story suggested it would ever end like this. Until it did. January 31st. It was supposed to be just another quiet night. No alarms. No warnings. No signs that anything was wrong. According to investigators, Nancy likely went to bed that evening inside her own home, the same place she had slept countless times before. There were no reports of visitors. No neighbors reported disturbances. No emergency calls. The house was quiet. Peaceful. Ordinary. And that's what makes what happened next so disturbing. Because somewhere between that normal night and the next morning, Nancy vanished. Not while traveling. Not on a trip. Not out in public. She disappeared from inside her own home. When family members couldn't reach her, concerns set in quickly. This wasn't like her. Calls went unanswered. Messages unread. Silence where there should have been routine. Police were contacted. And when investigators arrived at the house, they found something that instantly shifted the case from missing person to something much darker. Blood. Small droplets. Inside the home. Later confirmed through DNA testing to belong to Nancy Guthrie herself. Not enough to determine what happened. But enough to prove something did. Something violent. Something sudden. Something that Nancy did not choose. The house was sealed. The road was blocked. And the investigation quietly became criminal. Because now, one thing was clear. Nancy Guthrie did not simply walk away. She was taken. Within days, the story exploded. Not because of sensational details. Not because of leaked footage. Not because of dramatic revelations. But because of who her daughter is. Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, went public. Not as a journalist, but as a daughter begging for her mother back. And suddenly, what had been a local investigation became a national one. Media trucks lined the streets. Social media filled with prayers and theories. And law enforcement brought in federal resources. The FBI joined the case. Not because of fame. but because of what the evidence suggested. This was no accident. No misunderstanding. No voluntary disappearance. This was an abduction. Then came the detail that changed everything. Authorities confirmed they had received a message. A note believed to be connected to Nancy's disappearance. Its contents were not fully released to the public, but it was serious enough that the FBI acknowledged it. The family responded to it, and Savannah and her siblings addressed it directly on camera. "We received your message, and we understand." Which raises the most chilling question of all. What exactly did the message say? Was it a ransom demand? A proof of life attempt? A hoax? Or something only the people involved would know? Investigators won't say. But they did confirm this. A second message later surfaced, sent to a local TV station, using a secure server to hide the sender's identity. 2 messages. Same method. Possibly the same people. Someone was communicating. Someone wanted to be heard. But still, no suspects. No arrests. No confirmed location. Just words in the dark. Nancy Guthrie vanished from her own home. Blood was left behind. The FBI is involved. And someone claiming to be connected is sending messages. But the biggest question remains unanswered. If someone is Nancy, why hasn't anyone seen her? No video. No call. No proof of life. Only a family's plea, and a silence that grows heavier by the day. The house sat behind police tape. From the outside, it looked like any other home in a quiet Arizona neighborhood: trimmed lawn, closed windows, no visible signs of chaos. But inside, investigators were now treating every inch as evidence. This was no longer a welfare check. This was no longer a missing person. This was a potential abduction. And the house was the only place left that could still speak. Forensic teams moved carefully through the home. Photographing. Collecting. Bagging. Blood droplets, already confirmed to belong to Nancy, became the focal point. Not enough to indicate a fatal injury. Not enough to explain what happened. But enough to prove force had been used. There were no obvious signs of a long struggle. No overturned furniture. No shattered glass. Which raised a disturbing possibility. Whatever happened, happened quickly. Either Nancy was surprised, or she trusted the person who approached her, or she was incapacitated before she could react. And none of those options were comforting. Investigators cataloged everything. Electronics. Personal belongings. Medication. Documents. Some items were still there. Some were gone. Law enforcement did not release a full list publicly, but they confirmed that this was not a random burglary. Nothing suggested theft for financial gain alone. This wasn't someone ransacking a home. This was someone targeting a person. And that made the case far more dangerous. Detectives moved door to door, asking the same questions over and over. Did you see anyone unusual? Did you hear anything overnight? Any unfamiliar vehicles? Any cameras pointing toward the street? Most answers were the same. No. Nothing. Just another quiet night. No screams. No alarms. No suspicious activity. In a world filled with doorbell cameras, security systems, and constant recording, no one saw Nancy leave. Not on foot. Not by car. Not with another person. It was as if she had disappeared between frames of reality. Then came the digital search. Phone records. Internet activity. Smart devices. Location data. Investigators examined her phone, her home internet, nearby cell tower pings, neighborhood camera systems. They searched for unusual messages, strange calls, recent contacts, signs of planning or communication. Nothing suggested Nancy had been preparing to leave. Nothing suggested she had been in danger beforehand. No goodbye texts. No warnings. No red flags. Her digital life ended the same way her physical presence did. Suddenly. Without explanation. At one point, investigators returned to the house and towed a vehicle away for forensic examination. Law enforcement did not specify publicly who the vehicle belonged to, what they were looking for, or what they found. But they don't tow vehicles without reason. Which meant something about that car, its interior, its location, or its data, had become important. Another piece of a puzzle no one outside the investigation could see. By now, the case had crossed into federal territory. The FBI officially joined local authorities. Not for publicity. Not for optics. But because the elements were serious. Elderly victim evidence of forced possible ransom, digital communications, interstate possibilities. This was no longer just about a missing woman. This was about organized planning, controlled communication, and someone deliberately avoiding detection. Which meant one thing. Whoever took Nancy knew what they were doing. Then came the second message. Sent not to police, but to a television station. Again, through a secure server. Again, masking the sender's identity. Investigators confirmed it was a different IP address but the same type of anonymizing system, and it contained information the sender claimed proved authenticity. In other words, someone wanted to be believed. Someone wanted attention. Someone wanted leverage. But still, no confirmed proof of life. No verified voice. No image. No video. Only words. And words are easy to fake. Despite crime scene analysis, forensic teams, digital tracking, FBI involvement, two mysterious messages. Law enforcement still had no suspects. No arrests. No confirmed location. Which means one of two things. Either this was a crime executed with extraordinary precision, or the key evidence exists, but hasn't been found yet. And in missing person cases, time is not neutral. Every hour without answers makes one question heavier than all the others. Is Nancy still alive? Investigators have the house. They have the blood. They have the messages. They have federal resources. But they don't have Nancy. No witnesses. No footage. No trail. Just silence. There comes a moment in every missing person case when silence becomes unbearable. When waiting feels more dangerous than speaking. When privacy no longer protects, it isolates. When hope begins to compete with fear. For the Guthrie family, that moment arrived quickly. Because behind the scenes, days were passing. And Nancy was still gone. Savannah Guthrie had spent her career reporting the news. Now she was becoming it. Not by choice. Not by strategy. Not by ambition. But because her mother was missing, and the world needed to know. The family understood something critical. Whoever took Nancy was watching. They had sent messages. They had hidden behind technology. They had chosen when and how to communicate. which meant the only way to reach them was through the same medium, the public. Savannah appeared on national television not as an anchor, but as a daughter. Her voice broke. Her composure struggled. Her message was simple. Please, bring my mother home. It wasn't investigative. It wasn't strategic. It was emotional. And it worked. Within hours, Nancy's face was everywhere. Across networks. Across platforms. Across continents. The story was no longer local. It was human. A mother. A daughter. A family waiting. Behind the scenes, something else happened. The family received word of a message, one believed to be connected to Nancy's disappearance. Authorities never released its full contents. But it was real enough that the family responded. Not privately. Not through lawyers. Not through intermediaries. But directly. On camera. Savannah sat with her siblings, Annie and Cameron. No studio lights. No polished production. No dramatic music. Just three people trying to stay composed. Savannah looked straight into the lens and spoke to whoever might be watching. We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay. They weren't speaking to the public. They were speaking to the person holding their mother. And for the first time, the case shifted from investigation to negotiation. In the video, Savannah didn't mention evidence. She didn't mention police. She didn't mention the FBI. She talked about grandchildren, birthdays, love, memories, home. She humanized Nancy, not as a victim, but as a person. Because kidnappers don't respond to facts. They respond to emotion, to guilt, to empathy, to recognition. And the Guthrie family was trying to remind whoever took her. Nancy is not an object. Not a target. Not leverage. She is loved. But there was one line in the video that carried more weight than all the others. We need proof that she is alive. That sentence changed everything. Because it confirmed what investigators would not say publicly. They still had no confirmation of Nancy's condition. No voice. No image. No message directly from her. Just third-party communication. Which meant the family was negotiating. Without knowing if the person they loved was even still alive. The video spread instantly. Millions of views. Hundreds of thousands of comments. Prayers. Tears. Anger. Hope. People around the world began posting. Bring Nancy home. Praying for Savannah. Please let her be safe. But alongside the support came something else. Speculation. Theories. Accusations. Psychics. Anonymous tips. And for investigators, that noise became a problem. Because in a case this delicate, one false lead can derail everything. Criminal psychologists often say, the most dangerous moment in an abduction case is after the victim becomes famous. Because pressure increases, expectations rise, control becomes harder to maintain. And sometimes, that's when perpetrators make mistakes. Or irreversible decisions. Which means the family's plea, while necessary, also raised the stakes. For everyone. The world has now seen Nancy's face. Heard her children's voices. Felt their desperation. The kidnappers, if they exist, know they are being watched. But still, No proof of life. No direct contact. No location. Just a message sent through shadows. When a missing person case enters its most uncertain phase, every hope collides with every fear. For the Guthrie family, and for the millions watching, the silence that followed the pleas and the messages has been deafening. Investigators confirmed that 2 messages linked to Nancy's disappearance had surfaced, one sent to law enforcement, the other to a local news station. Both were anonymous, both used secure servers to mask identities, and both contained demands or proof claims. But the critical question remained. Are these messages genuine? Could they be a cruel prank? A desperate attempt to manipulate public attention? Or something far more sinister? The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department refused to confirm or deny the authenticity of these messages publicly. But internally, these messages became a vital part of the investigation. For a family, the lack of direct communication from their loved one is unbearable. No voice recordings. No video. No written note from Nancy herself. Just third-party messages claiming connection. Each day without proof grows heavier. And for investigators, the absence of a proof of life signal means 2 possibilities. Nancy is unable to communicate, or the messages are fabricated to mislead. Both are grim prospects. Law enforcement doubled down on traditional investigative methods. Reviewing surveillance footage from the neighborhood and nearby roads. Analyzing phone and internet records. Canvassing for witnesses and tips. Examining any physical evidence, including the vehicle that was towed. But with no solid leads, the case became a frustrating maze. Each tip had to be verified. Each theory tested. Each rumor investigated. Because the cost of a false lead isn't just time lost. It's hope lost. As the investigation continued, community members and strangers around the world joined together to keep Nancy's story alive. Prayers. Vigils. Online groups. Shared posts. But while the support was overwhelming, it could not replace answers. The most important question still loomed. Where is Nancy Guthrie? As days turned into weeks, the investigation faced critical unknowns. Who had access to Nancy's home that night? Why was she targeted? Was the abduction planned or opportunistic? What was the motive? Were there any witnesses who remained silent? Without answers to these questions, the case risked growing colder. Beyond the headlines and media attention, Nancy's disappearance shines a harsh light on broader issues. The vulnerability of elderly people living alone. The challenges law enforcement faces with limited evidence. The power of public awareness in missing persons cases. And most importantly, the human cost when a family loses a loved one without explanation. For those watching, the plea remains. If you know something, anything, if you saw something unusual that night, if you have any information that could help, please speak up. Your silence could be the difference between hope and despair. The family is waiting. The community is watching. The investigators are searching. But the truth remains hidden. The final question hangs in the air. Will Nancy Guthrie ever come home? And if so, when?